You would always find this one person who never smokes, drinks, or engages in any other unhealthy activity that could potentially compromise their well-being. Whenever they witness others indulging in such behaviors, they launch into lengthy lectures on the subject matter. I'm him, the one who preaches against these things. But I never realized that this habit could one day lead me to danger until I experienced it. On a Saturday evening, after a disastrous blind date that ended due to personality conflicts, I waited for the bus at the stop. Suddenly my phone rang, and I saw it was my cousin Manny on the line. I picked up the call and he asked if I would attend Peter's daughter's quinceañera. When I asked when it was, since I had forgotten all about it, he told me it was taking place the next day. I replied that I wasn't sure I could make it since I had a job interview scheduled that day, which was a lie, and he knew it too. However, the truth was that I didn't want to go because I was not too fond of such parties with drinking and wild behavior. Come on, man, Peter will incessantly pester me if I don't attend, and I don't want to go without you, he pleaded. Fine, I'll try. Now don't force me anymore, I said before disconnecting the call. While I was patiently awaiting the bus's arrival, a group of somewhat uneasy teenagers arrived at the bus stop. Their behavior was quite peculiar, as they spoke loudly and laughed in an almost manic manner while constantly fidgeting about. To my surprise, one of the teenagers extracted a glass tube from their pocket and inhaled what appeared to be crack smoke. I have never been one to lecture strangers on how to live their lives, so I'm not quite sure why I felt the urge to educate those young individuals on the dangers of smoking. Hey, you guys are still in high school, right? What are you doing smoking at your age? The once boisterous environment immediately quieted when I uttered those words, and all eyes turned towards me. Mind your business, old man, one of the girls in the group said, attempting to establish dominance with her tone. Although it didn't work. Her appearance stood out the most. Bleached hair with a sharp fringe, adorned with numerous tattoos, and a piercing in her nasal septum, embodying the quintessential tomboy persona. I'm just saying this because it harms your health, kids. I should have stayed silent, but I couldn't control my tongue. One of the guys, a towering figure adorned with tattoos, fixed me with a menacing glare and snarled, "You got a problem, Grandpa? Want to step outside?" As he started getting closer to my chest, making me step behind. Not really, Before I could finish my sentence, he pushed me so hard that I couldn't balance myself and fell on my butt. They all started laughing in sync when the guy grabbed me by the collar and forced me up. I understood what he was doing. He wanted me to fight him back, but I didn't want to fight, and to be honest, I was starting to get scared. "Relax, dude, do what you want, okay? My bus is here," I said, pointing at the bus, and started walking away. The guy suddenly grabbed my collar again and yanked me back, saying, "Not so fast." The rest of the group began encouraging him to strike me to set an example and discourage anyone from interfering with them in the future. I couldn't understand why they were being so aggressive. It wasn't like I was rude. My tone was super polite, and I only warned them about the harm smoking can cause to one's body. I grew increasingly frightened as I pleaded with them to release me, explaining that I meant no harm. However, they were too under the influence of whatever they smoked to listen to reason. Suddenly, a punch landed on my jaw out of nowhere. Holding my face, I turned to see it was the tomboy girl who had hit me and was giggling now. I wanted to beat the shit out of these people, but these kids were scarier. Some were even holding baseball bats, and I realized I mixed myself with many junkies who probably wouldn't hesitate to murder me in broad daylight. I was about to get another hit, but I twisted the guy's arms and somehow pulled myself away from them before making a run for it. I thought they would stop, but they started running after me instead. I never knew I could ever be scared of a bunch of teenagers, but here I was getting chased by them. I noticed a Walmart store and immediately rushed inside, hoping they wouldn't find me. They did come inside, looked here and there for a few minutes, and then left. There was no way I would return to the bus stop to encounter and get beaten by those deranged kids, so I called myself a cab. But as I exited the Walmart, I found those kids lurking around just across the street. I tried not to look noticeable as I walked to the cab, and luckily I successfully managed to get in. Even though I would never tell this to anyone, it was a terrifying experience. My heart was still racing as fast as a racehorse, and I couldn't believe what happened to me. One thing was sure, I would never say not to do anything to anyone again, especially not teenagers. They can be terrifying these days. After getting home, I called my cousin and told him I would go to the party, which made him happy. It's been quite some time since that incident, and I never shared this experience with anyone until now. However, I never blamed those kids for being like that, for their behavior was all the result of neglect and bad parenting, which has become common in today's generation.
Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so.
Your special day can turn sour for various reasons, such as being unable to get the gift you wanted, reprimands from your parents instead of a birthday wish, being completely forgotten by everyone, financial constraints limiting you from getting the party of your desire, accidentally eating something you were allergic to and spending the entire day in the hospital, or unpleasant family conflicts. However, my 21st birthday was a unique and haunting experience that has left an indelible mark on me. I found myself falling into an unhealthy pattern of overeating, and as a result, I gained an alarming 57 pounds in just 3 short months. This weight gain was taking a toll on my mental health, and with my birthday just around the corner, I was feeling even more down and discouraged. Unfortunately, my unhealthy relationship with food worsened, and I consumed even more than before on my special day. No, seriously, I was eating hamburgers and playing games all day with a shitty mood. "Hey, Mom," I promptly answered the phone upon seeing her name on the display screen. "May I help you with something?" I inquired politely, masking my growing irritation. "I was wondering if you had spoken to Gloria about arranging the blind date for Stefan. I believe he could use a little cheering up after all he's been through." My anger flared up even more after those words left my mother's lips. I had hoped she would remember the day, but she seemed more concerned about her son's happiness than caring for her daughter. "I'm texting you her number. It might be better if you ask her yourself, since you care so much about him," I stated before ending the call. Memories of childhood flooded my mind, reminding me how my mother had always favored my brother over me. The resentment I felt towards him for receiving more attention, affection, and extravagant birthday celebrations still lingered within me. Meanwhile, I was left to watch from the sidelines, feeling invisible. I'm telling you, they are the very reason I have developed this eating disorder. The divorce was solely his fault, and Mom knew this. She knew he cheated on Portia. However, despite this knowledge, she continued acting like her son was experiencing wrongful heartbreak. Hell with that. I had my problems to deal with, so I shook all the thoughts of my twisted family. After realizing that I had eaten all the food, I decided to order takeout. I picked up a pamphlet from my kitchen cabinet of a chicken place around the block and called to place my order. However, the person on the other end suggested the family combo, which apparently included everything I had already ordered. I was taken aback by the suggestion and felt like they were making fun of me. I couldn't contain my frustration and ended up threatening to leave a negative rating and encouraging my friends to do the same. My anger got the best of me, and I hung up the call without ordering anything. As I glanced at my phone's glowing screen, my heart sank as I realized the mistake I had just made. However, I couldn't muster the courage to call back to that place again, so I decided to order from a different restaurant instead. After placing my order, I returned to the comfort of my room to indulge in video games. Before going online to play the game, I briefly stopped in the washroom. A peculiar sound caught my attention as I was concluding my business and exiting the facility. It appeared to be a knock on the door. That was fast, I mused to myself, checking the time. It had only been 15 minutes since I placed my order. Assuming it must be the delivery person with my food, I proceeded to open the door. However, to my surprise, I discovered that no one was there. A sudden and loud commotion disrupted the house's stillness upon closing the door. My instincts kicked in, and I swiftly went inside, only to be greeted by the sight of brick lying on the floor beside shattered window glass. My heart pounded with fear as I spotted an unfamiliar man rummaging through my refrigerator, his presence both unwelcome and alarming. I quickly took out my phone to dial 911, only to get startled as he said, "I wouldn't do that if I were you. You would be dead before the cops arrive." As he swiftly pivoted, I saw his hand gripping my sharp kitchen knife. He inquired if I had any food available. My nerves were on edge as I calmly replied, "I'm sorry, I don't have anything, but I've ordered takeout and it should be arriving soon." The doorbell rang, announcing the arrival of the delivery boy. I hoped to ask him for help, but the man walked behind me, putting the knife's pointy edge on my back, as he whispered not to pull anything if I wanted to live. As I tentatively approached the door, he trailed behind me, his eyes gleaming excitedly. His eagerness was palpable as he snatched the food from the delivery boy's outstretched hand, his smile wide and uncontainable. Despite my shaking hands and racing heart, the person at the door seemed oblivious to any sense of danger or suspicion. As soon as the delivery boy departed, he quickly shut the door and made his way to the couch. His hunger voracious and insatiable, the food disappeared rapidly, as if he had been deprived of sustenance for days. He suddenly halted and looked at me before finishing the last drumstick from the box, putting the knife on the table and licking his fingers. He glared at me as he stood up and climbed out the window. I stood there for about half an hour in a daze, looking out the window, wondering if he would return to finish me off. When I realized he was gone for good, I took a long sigh, and my legs grew weak, making me fall on the floor. My heart felt heavy as emotions overtook me, causing tears to stream down my face relentlessly as I wept for hours on end. The disappointment wasn't due to my food getting snatched by a creepy man, but rather it was because I longed for a typical birthday celebration, one filled with games, laughter, and joy. Unfortunately, my reality was far from ordinary, and even my lonely day turned into a harrowing experience that left me feeling lucky to be alive. Only if Mom gave me even a tiny bit of importance she gave my brother, I wouldn't have to go through any of this. Thankfully, I never had the misfortune of encountering that man again or being subjected to a similar experience. While it may not seem as though I was a significant life-threatening predicament since he departed after consuming the food, that particular interaction has left an everlasting impression that continues to plague me to this very moment.
I was 16 at the time. I rode the public bus to and from the school. This particular day, I had done some special effects makeup for my classes, so I had fake blood running down my face, and I couldn't be bothered to take it off before leaving school. Now, I knew that people on the bus would stare and ask questions, so I wasn't surprised when a man in his mid-30s started asking about the makeup. He asked the usual questions like, "Did you do it yourself?" So I expected the conversation to be over quickly, but boy was I wrong. This man, who said his name was Rob, started steering the conversation in strange territory, asking me if I had a boyfriend, to which I said I did, and then he asked if my boyfriend liked the makeup and if I was going to see him. I lied and said yes, he did, and that I was going to see him. Then he said with a creepy grin, "You remind me a lot of my sister." I was clueless as to what I should do, so I smiled back, and he continued and said that his sister was kind of a bitch, and went on to say that my sister was always lying about me to our family, and I had fantasies of breaking her like jewels. At this point, I was really terrified. My bus stop was like 20 minutes away, and I wanted to get out of this situation as soon as possible. Seeing that what he said was making me uncomfortable, he told me where he worked and what he did there, and I just nodded along the entire time. Closer to my bus stop, he said, "Do you want to come to my house? I have a freezer full of pizza and ice cream. Maybe we can hang out for some time." I politely declined him, saying that my boyfriend was waiting. I got off at my bus stop and speed walked to my home, all while being on a call with a friend, telling them what had happened. Things were fine after that. I changed my bus route so that I didn't run into him again. But one afternoon, I had to go to the store, and that was on the old bus route. I was nervous getting on the bus, but I became happy when I did not see Rob on there. I did my shopping, and just as I was leaving the store, I saw Rob standing by the door, staring at me. He walked towards me with a grin on his face and wrapped his hands around me. I pulled myself away from him, saying that I was busy and I have to go. He asked what I was doing and that he would tag along, but I persistently refused him, and I told him I can't, and I walked towards a neighboring store that I knew would be busy. Sure enough, Rob followed me. I walked in the heavily populated makeup aisle and kept my focus on some cheap lipstick, hoping that he would go away. But I was wrong, as Rob leaned over me, picked up a red lipstick, and whispered, "This would look really good on you. I can't wait to see you wearing it." He put the lipstick in my basket and walked out of the store. I stayed in the store for 20 more minutes after his departure, afraid to walk home alone. After mustering up some courage, I put away the basket and the lipstick and called a friend to stay on the phone until I reached home. I don't know after that if he had followed me or not, but after that day, the motion detector light on my porch started coming on quite a lot, and I started hearing knocks on my bedroom window. Thankfully, I moved, and I have not seen Rob since.